My name is Sarah Clift, and I am an instructor in the foundation year program and in the contemporary studies program, and I am the coordinator for section 6 of foundation year. Usually section 6 starts sort of around the end of the long 19th century, so sort of very beginning of the 20th century. The 20th century in many ways still continues into the 21st century. I mean, many of the developments, the interrogations, the critical examinations of sort of traditional concepts, we're still living in that world of critical interrogation, and so there's a great deal that we can learn from thinkers, writers, activists, artists in the 20th century who were kind of at the forefront of questioning notions of self. 20th century was it was one of great catastrophe, and it was also one of great optimism and potential and opening up. And I think those two things are related. Catastrophes often cause us to fundamentally question the status quo, question the way things are. I'm going to say the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic in 1918 to 1920. Given our current context, I think that one resonates maybe particularly strongly for us today. It didn't achieve the kind of artistic or literary or even historical resonance that other disasters of the 20th century did. I think there are good reasons for that. I mean, although it's debated, there is a strong connection between the First World War and the outbreak of that global pandemic, that influenza. And of course, the flu itself, the memory of the flu itself is kind of eclipsed by the memory of the so-called Great War, as it was known at the time. One thing that interests me about it is the fact that it has virtually disappeared from collective memory, with very few exceptions, and there are important exceptions like Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, for instance, that we'll read in foundation year this year. It starts with the line, "Mrs. Dalloway said she would go and get the flowers herself." And this is, when read without context, that seems like a completely banal and sort of typically, modernist, nothing statement. But when read against the backdrop, and as I said, I mean, Virginia Woolf is the master of indirection, and we find out throughout the first few pages of Mrs. Dalloway that she's been ill. She's had the flu, and she's sort of filled with a new vitality about being able to go outside. And they're just exquisite passages about the busy London streets and the noise and the color and the vibrancy and the people. And I think we get such a strong and maybe even moving sense of that, the dynamism that we all long for today, that we both long for and actually kind of fear. To be able to see my mood and my feeling of missing people, but not wanting them to come too close, those kind of strange contradictory feelings of seeing them articulated so brilliantly, so it's like a chiseled diamond. And that is exactly the tone of Mrs. Dalloway, a kind of intoxicating thrill of life, starting again, but also thoughts of death and fear of infection and fear of proximity. Kind of go hand in hand. Being able to reach back 100 years and find a kind of companion is just really a wonderful experience. I think the students in this year's 5th class will know exactly what she's talking about.